Before we begin the service, please make sure your cell phones are turned to the silent mode. Service will be conducted by Rabbi Lazer Hershkovich of Chabad Cares, Chabad Free of Niles.
Lev ben David and Necha, Lev Furman. Lev was a beloved husband of Rosa for close to 60 years, the loving father of Vladimir and Dmitri, father-in-law to Vicky, cherished grandfather of Ari, Monique, and Robert. He was a dear brother to Izya, beloved brother-in-law to Sveta, Nina, and Yura, uncle to Nina, Victor, and Sergei, and cherished friend of many. Sitting last night with Vova and with Dima, hearing about, I met their father a couple times, but really hearing more about his life, one thing came to my mind. He was a mensch. Lev was a mensch. A good father to his kids, a good Yiddishka to his grandkids, a good son and son-in-law to his parents and to his in-laws, a good husband, a good brother, a good brother-in-law, a good person in the community. The Talmud tells us that somebody who mourns for an ish kosher, means a good human being, it says, Mochalin lo l'chol avonotav. They're forgiven for all of their sins. By mourning the loss of a good person, we're not mourning the loss of great statesmanship, scholarship, prominence, or accomplishments in life. Rather, we mourn for another person. We're mourning for the life of another human being, for a neshama, for a soul. God gives and God takes. Today, we mourn the taking of what God has given. That's the basis of mourning. And the true form of mourning is when we mourn the essence of the person themselves, the very person themselves, not their accomplishments or their social status. Because it's not our social accomplishments that matter. Ultimately, we are defined by the fact that we have a neshama, we have a soul, and that we were a good human being, that we were a mensch. There are accomplishments that really matter. Those are the ones that perpetuate themselves long after we are gone. And I once observed that the greatest form of nachas, naslazhdenia, or enjoyment that somebody could have is that when they look at their children or their grandchildren, or they look at even the people around them and they see a reflection of themselves. When they look at those next generations and they see that they've succeeded in perpetuating the values and the morals that mean so much to them, to the next generation, it gives that nachas. And from generation to generation, things change. Wars, famine, depressions, social upheavals, they all leave their indelible marks. But if someone's able to see that regardless and despite all the changes that take place over time, that which is most important to them remains intact and it perpetuates itself onto the next generation, that is achievement. That's achieving something. Continuing the chain of tradition that God has given us, that is true achievement. And I think that's what Lev, he could look upon and say is the greatest achievement of his life. It's the greatest achievement any person could have. Lev was born 81 years ago on a ship while his family was fleeing from the war. And he lived through tough times, but he also lived through good times. Those of us in the younger generation, we have never, and we never should experience those great social upheavals that the previous generation have. we were raised in relatively stable times. And sometimes we have a hard time understanding what the previous generation has gone through, their trials and their tribulations of life. But to see that Lev, regardless of his circumstances, whether it was when he was orphaned from his parents, when he himself was a young father in his 20s, or the various challenges that he faced while living in the Soviet Union under communist oppression, yet he succeeded. He succeeded in building a family together with his love, the love of his life, Rosa. He succeeded to always be a provider, always be providing support, assistance to those closest to him, whenever and however he could. He succeeded in making Aliyah and lived in the Holy Land of Israel for 10 years, later coming and settling down here in Chicago. But most importantly, what he succeeded to impart his traditions, his moral values to his children, Gadol and grandchildren, his mishpacha, his family, and in essence, all those around him. And that's really something which is exemplary. There's a concept that says, Bra mezakeh ava, that children could sometimes do for their parents after their passing what they couldn't do in their own lifetime. And actually, the credit and the merit goes to the parents. Why is that so? How could a child do something which merits his or her parents? The kid did it, let the kid get the credit. The reason is because children are the result of their parents. Even if it may seem that their lives are very different, still, all the opportunities that children have are directly or indirectly the result of their parents' nurturing, the result of their parents' upbringing. Whatever children have is ultimately a result of what their parents gave them. So therefore, we say that a child's actions can actually merit their parents. We see that Yova merited in having children and grandchildren, nieces and nephews, friends and community members that are going to uphold the moral and ethical values that he held so dear. For example, something that kept on coming up when you were sharing about your father, something kept on coming up. He was a person that showed up. He was showing up. The Talmud says, "B'makom she'eni shishtad liyasish." In the place where there's no man, strive to be the man. Do what has to get done. He did what had to get done to make sure that his loved ones were taken care of, even if it was an inconvenience for him, even if it was a discomfort for him. He never lost hope, even in the face of great challenges. And just in general, was a nice person. That's the greatest merit one can have. He could say that when we all here today are going to take some of those values and integrate it and implement it into our life, he could say that he has left generations that will continue in his footsteps. It's no coincidence that Lev passed away on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. It's a Jewish tradition that teaches that somebody who passes away on a Jewish holiday, it's a sign that they were a special person that earned this merit, because we are taught that on those days, the souls go straight to Gan Eden, straight to paradise. The Torah teaches that Im b'chokosei telechu, and continues on with the words V'nasati shalom ba'aretz, which means that God promises that if you'll follow in my footsteps, if you follow all the mitzvot, if you'll do all the mitzvot, there will be peace in the Holy Land. But this could also be interpreted that Im b'chokosei telechu v'nasati shalom ba'aretz, that if your children will follow in your ways the things that you set out for them, v'nasati shalom ba'aretz, I'll give peace to you when you are ba'aretz, when you have finished your mission in life, and after you've passed away, and you're in the land, then you're going to be able to rest in peace because of the future generations that will walk in your ways and uphold the ways of the Lord. Rashi, the preeminent commentator on the Torah, says, Yaakov lo meis ba'zaro v'chayim lafu b'chayim. Jacob, it says, Jacob, our forefather, never died. Just as his children are alive, so too he is alive. When we perpetuate the legacy of the departed, we are keeping them alive. They live on within every single one of us through our actions and good deeds. Most of us here today had the great pleasure in knowing Lev, but in the rush of life, there are many exceptional people that we do not get to know. The important thing is, that the living should take to heart and perpetuate the legacy of the departed. By participating in today's service, we learn important lessons. We see and we feel the world a little bit differently. And as a result of today's funeral, we should understand what is truly valuable in this world, in this life. That what life ultimately amounts to is not material gain, but rather the continuity of generations. We who participate, myself included, are changed and improved in the process. And in closing, I would like to ask that in Lev's merit, all of us who are here should confront what life is truly about, should think about what really matters, and we should increase in our dedication to goodness and kindness so that we can continue Lev Furman's legacy. I'm going to ask Monique to share a few words on behalf of the family.
I just want to start by thanking everyone for coming today. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my brother who couldn't make it back from Israel but would totally be here, most definitely would be here if he could. I'm very grateful for Diela as he held a very big part in raising me and making me who I am today. Coming to America with Baba around the time I was born, I had spent countless days and many of my firsts with them. I will always be grateful to have spent the majority of my childhood with Diela and many of my formative years. Diela loved to be outside and loved to walk, and throughout my childhood we spent many hours and days walking outside and going to the park. I'll always remember the sweet embrace every time we would see each other, and how he would greet me with a great big smile and hug. Along with the sweet embrace came the constant offerings of sweets and candy, and himself sneaking a piece or two without Papa seeing. Lastly, I will remember his passionate spirit and support for all of his grandchildren. A specific story that comes to mind takes place at Ari's hockey game when, after the game, he very passionately made his way onto the ice to scream at the referee or so discuss with the referee a bad call in Russian, and just supporting. That's just one example of how he supported with all of his passion and efforts throughout all of our lives. I'm very thankful to have spent 20 years with him. May his memory be a blessing to all of us. Spasiba za everything, Diela. I love you forever. Thank you.
Being that it's the month of Nisan, the month of Passover, that we celebrate Passover, so we're not saying certain prayers of like the Kalmali, the typical memorial prayer, which is said at a funeral. It's asking God for extra compassion, extra tachanun, supplications. And it's this month, it's a month of holidays, where, as we mentioned earlier, it's a special time of year that everything is lifted. All the like they say, all the traffic lights are green. It's he has the straight shot. So we're going to recite a prayer from the book of Psalms, but not the typical Mole. Chapter 16 in Psalms. It's something that I was thinking about what prayer to say. And chapter 16 in the book of Psalms, it's King David saying to take care of those next generations, even after he passes. So please rise for the reading of chapter 16 in Psalms. Michtam l'David Shamreini el ki chasi sivach amart l'Adonai Adonai ata tevasi ba'alecha l'kdoshim asher boretz hema ba'adirei kol chavsivam yirbu atzvaisam acher maharu ba'lasech niskei midam Uval asa as shemaisam asavasai Adonai min azchaki v'chaisi אתה תמך גרה לי, חבלים נפלו לי בנעימים, אף נחל שפרה עלי, אברך אס אדוני אשר יעצני, אף לילס יצרוני חיל ירסי, שיביסי אדוני לנגדי סמד, כי מימיני בעל הנוית, לכן שמח ליבי ויגל כבודי, על בשרי ישכן לבטח, כי לא יעזב נפשי לשאול, לא יסיתן חסידך לירש שחס, תדיעני ערך חיים, סייבה סמכוס אסמנך, מאימייס וממך נצח.
Please be seated. This concludes the service here at the chapel. For those of you who will be joining the family at the graveside, we ask you to please follow the hearse in your cars to the graveside. Following the interment, the family is inviting everyone to Pizza to Golf Restaurant located at 577 Waukegan Road in Northbrook. The following gentlemen have been selected as pallbearers: Alex Lemovich, Max Godinuk, Gene Shackman, Robert Furman, Dennis Ivanov, and Boris Samolovich. Please rise and stand in tribute as the gentlemen whose names I've called step forward to help escort the casket from the chapel.
Это я помогаю перевести. Okay. Over we're gonna clear side. Okay, look together. Watch your step.